The voice came through first. Not from the guest chair. Not from the audience. From the speakers mounted high on Studio 6B's walls, speakers that had carried 1,000 punchlines, 1,000,000 laughs, but never anything like this. Johnny Carson's hand stopped mid-gesture. The cue card he was holding slipped from his fingers and landed soundlessly on the desk. His smile, the smile that America had trusted for 3 decades, vanished. Doc Severinsen lowered his trumpet. Ed McMahon's laugh died in his throat. The audience, 200 people who had come to be entertained, sat frozen in their seats. Because the voice that filled the studio was unmistakable. Soft, wavering Midwestern. A voice Johnny hadn't heard in 2 years. His mother's voice. The entire studio held its breath. And for the first time in 4,531 episodes, Johnny Carson cried on live television. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. 6 hours earlier, Studio 6B had been chaos. Stagehands adjusted lights. Writers argued over monologue jokes. Doc ran through charts with the band. It was October 23, 1987, a Friday night taping, routine as clockwork. Johnny arrived at 4 p.m., like always. Navy blue suit, perfectly pressed. Hair combed back. He carried a leather notebook, the one with his mother's recipe for pumpkin pie tucked inside the back flap. He'd carried it every show since she passed in 1985. "Good house tonight, Johnny," said Freddie de Cordova, his producer, as they walked the hallway. "Sold out in 90 minutes. Johnny nodded, distracted. He'd been thinking about her all week. October was her favorite month. She used to send him postcards from Nebraska, pictures of cornfields turning gold, handwritten notes about the harvest. The last postcard had arrived 3 days before she died. He never opened it. It was still in his desk drawer at home, sealed. He sat down at his desk on set, running his thumb along the wood grain. 30 years behind this desk. 30 years of keeping it light, keeping it moving, keeping America smiling before bed. But tonight felt different. At 5:30 p.m., a production assistant approached nervously. "Mr. Carson, there's someone here to see you. Says it's important." Johnny looked up. "Tell them I'm prepping." "Sir, she says she has something from your mother." The words hit him like a fist. He stood slowly, smoothing his tie. "Where is she?" The woman was waiting in the green room. Mid-60s, kind eyes, wearing a floral dress that looked like it had been ironed 3 times. She stood when Johnny entered. "Mr. Carson, my name is Margaret Hale. I was your mother's neighbor in Norfolk. I'm so sorry to intrude, but she asked me to do something, and I didn't know how else to reach you." Johnny's throat tightened. "What did she ask you to do?" Margaret reached into her purse and pulled out a small cassette tape. The label, written in his mother's shaky handwriting, read, "For Johnny. Play it when you need to remember." "She recorded this 2 weeks before she passed," Margaret said softly. "She made me promise, that I'd get it to you. Not through the mail. Not through your people. To you. In person." Johnny stared at the tape. His hands didn't move. "She said you know when to play it." He took the cassette. It weighed nothing and everything. "Thank you," he whispered. Margaret squeezed his hand. "She was so proud of you, Johnny. Every single night she watched. Every single night." When she left, Johnny stood alone in the green room, holding the tape. The studio monitor on the wall showed stagehands finalizing the set. 40 minutes until airtime. He walked to the control booth. "I need to play something tonight," he told the director. "During the monologue. Just trust me." The director blinked. "Johnny, we're live in 35 minutes. What is it?" "It's personal. And it's important." Carson stopped mid-monologue. The entire studio froze. The show opened like it always did. Ed's booming intro. Doc's fanfare. Johnny walking through the curtain, waving, soaking in the applause. He sat down, shuffled his cards, grinned at the camera. "Good evening, folks. How are we tonight?" Laughter. Applause. Comfort. He launched into the monologue. A joke about Congress. A crack about the weather. The rhythm was perfect. The audience was with him. Then he stopped. Mid-sentence. Mid-joke. He looked down at his desk and saw the cassette tape sitting there, placed by a stagehand per his request. His hand reached for it before his mind could catch up. "Folks," he said quietly, "I need to do something tonight that I've never done before." The laughter faded. The audience leaned forward. Ed glanced at Doc. Doc looked at the director. No one knew what was happening. Johnny held up the tape. "This afternoon, a woman came to see me. She brought me something from my mother. My mother passed away 2 years ago, and I didn't know this existed." His voice cracked. He steadied himself. "She recorded a message for me, and I've never heard it. I'm going to play it now. I hope that's okay." No one breathed. He nodded to the sound engineer. The engineer, hands shaking, loaded the tape into the deck. Static hissed through the speakers. Then her voice filled the studio. "Johnny, sweetheart, it's Mom." Johnny closed his eyes. "I don't know when you'll hear this, but I hope it's when you need it most. I know you, honey. I know you carry everything. You make everyone laugh, but you don't let anyone see when you're hurting." The camera stayed on Johnny's face. His jaw tightened. His hands gripped the edge of the desk. "I just want you to know. I'm so proud of you. Not because you're on television. Not because you're famous. But because you're kind. You're good. You've always been good, Johnny, even when you thought you weren't enough." A tear rolled down his cheek. "And I want you to remember something. When I'm gone, and you're sitting at that desk late at night, wondering if it all matters, it does. Every laugh you've given someone. Every night you've helped someone forget their troubles for an hour. That's a gift, sweetheart. Don't ever forget that." Her voice softened, breaking. "I love you, Johnny. I'll always love you. And I'll be watching. Every single night." The tape clicked off. The studio was silent. Johnny sat there, head bowed, shoulders shaking. He didn't move for 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then, slowly, he lifted his head and looked at the audience. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I needed to hear that." Backstage, he made a choice no producer would have ever allowed. Ed McMahon stood. He walked over to Johnny's desk, said nothing, and placed a hand on his shoulder. Doc Severinsen raised his trumpet and played a single, soft note, just one, that hung in the air like a prayer. And then the audience began to stand. One person. Then 5. Then 50. Then all of them. They didn't clap. They didn't cheer. They just stood, in silence, as Johnny Carson, the man who had made them laugh for 30 years, finally let himself be human. He looked up at them, tears streaming down his face, and nodded. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for letting me do that." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, took a shaky breath, and smiled, not his TV smile, but something smaller, truer. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Let's take a break. We'll be right back." The cameras cut to commercial. But in the studio, no one moved. Johnny stood and walked to the edge of the stage. He reached out and shook hands with people in the front row. An older woman grabbed his hand and held it, tears on her cheeks. "My mom passed last year," she said. "Thank you for this." Johnny nodded, his throat too tight to speak. Backstage, the crew stood in stunned silence. Freddie DeCordova wiped his glasses. A cameraman named Pete, who'd worked the show for 15 years, turned away and cried. When they came back from commercial, Johnny was seated again. His eyes were red, but his posture was steady. "Sorry about that, folks," he said with a soft laugh. "I promised myself I wouldn't do that on TV, and here we are." The audience laughed, not at him, but with him. "My mother used to watch every night," Johnny continued. "And sometimes I'd call her after the show, and she'd tell me which jokes worked and which ones didn't. She was a tough critic. More laughter, gentler now. I miss her. I miss her every day. But hearing her voice tonight, I don't know. It reminded me why I do this. Why any of us do this. He looked directly into the camera. If you have someone you love, call them tonight. Don't wait. Don't assume there's time. Just call them. But this was the moment no one in the studio, nor anyone at home, ever saw coming. Johnny reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. It was worn, creased, yellowed at the edges. I've carried this with me for 2 years, he said. I took it from my mother's kitchen table the day of her funeral. It's the last thing she wrote. He unfolded it carefully, his hands trembling. It's a grocery list. The audience let out a soft, surprised laugh. Johnny smiled. I know. It's just a grocery list. Eggs. Bread. Milk. Butter. But at the bottom, she wrote something else. He paused, his voice breaking again. She wrote, "Don't forget to call Johnny." His face crumpled. He pressed the paper to his chest. I didn't call her that week. I was busy. I was always busy. And then she was gone. Silence. So I carry this, he said, holding it up. Every single show. To remember. To remind myself that no job, no show, no moment on television is more important than the people we love. He folded the paper and slipped it back into his pocket. Anyway, he said, his voice lighter now, I didn't mean to turn this into a therapy session. Let's bring out our first guest. But the audience didn't laugh. They stood again. And this time, they applauded, long, deep, thunderous applause that shook the studio. Johnny stood nodding, his hand over his heart. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. After the show, Johnny sat alone in his dressing room. The cassette tape sat on the table in front of him. He rewound it and played it again. And again. And again. At midnight, Ed knocked on the door. You okay, John? Johnny looked up, eyes red. Yeah, I think I am. Ed sat down across from him. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen you do. Johnny laughed softly. I didn't plan it. I couldn't not do it. Good, Ed said. Because that's the show people are going to remember. Not the jokes. Not the guests. That. Johnny nodded. I hope so. The tape became legendary. NBC kept it in the archives, but Johnny never allowed it to be rebroadcast. That was for that night, he said. For those people. But the grocery list, he carried it every show, until his final episode in 1992. When he retired, he framed it and hung it in his home office. On the frame, he added an engraving. The most important call is the one you make today. Years later, David Letterman visited Johnny at his Malibu home. He saw the frame and asked about it. Johnny told him the story. And you know what the crazy thing is? Johnny said. After that show aired, NBC was flooded with letters. Thousands of them. People saying they called their parents, their siblings, their kids. People reconnecting because of that night. Letterman nodded, his eyes wet. That's the power you had, Johnny. Johnny shook his head. No. That's the power we all have. We just forget. He looked out at the ocean. I didn't forget that night. And I never will. When Johnny Carson passed away in 2005, the grocery list was found in his desk drawer. His family donated it to the Smithsonian, where it remains on display today, alongside a small card that reads, In memory of Ruth Carson, who reminded her son, and all of us, that the most important moments aren't the ones we broadcast. They're the ones we share. The night of that broadcast became part of television folklore. Producers at NBC received over 15,000 letters in the following week. People from every state wrote to thank Johnny for giving them permission to be vulnerable, to grieve, to remember. One letter, from a man in Ohio, said, I hadn't spoken to my father in 7 years. After watching your show, I picked up the phone. We talked for 3 hours. Thank you for giving me my father back. Another, from a widow in Arizona. My husband passed 6 months ago. I've been trying to be strong for everyone. But watching you cry made me realize it's okay to miss him. It's okay to break. Johnny kept those letters in a box under his desk for the rest of his career. Sometimes, before a show, he'd read one or two to remind himself why he walked through that curtain every night. The cassette tape never left his possession. He had it digitized years later, but he rarely played it. I don't need to, he told Ed once. I hear her voice every day. In 1992, on his final Tonight Show, Johnny ended with a simple message. No fanfare. No grand speech. Just this. I've been coming into your homes for 30 years. You've let me be part of your lives, and for that I'm grateful. But tonight I want to leave you with something my mother taught me. Don't wait to tell someone you love them. Don't wait to make that call. Because one day you'll wish you had. He smiled, waved, and walked through the curtain one last time. The grocery list, with its faded ink and worn edges, still hangs in the Smithsonian. Visitors stop to read it every day. Some cry. Some take photos. Some just stand there, silent, remembering their own mothers, their own lists, their own regrets. And every October 23rd, former Tonight Show crew members gather quietly in a small bar near Rockefeller Center. They don't make speeches. They don't toast loudly. They just sit together, remembering the night Johnny Carson reminded the world that even legends need their mothers.